Hi, this is Ron Stockton. I'm a political scientist and I'm not a Muslim, so why am I studying Muslim graves? I grew up in a small town in the southern tip of Illinois, and we had a local graveyard. And as a boy, I would always go there with my parents on Decoration Day, as it was called in those days, and I would see the graves of my grandparents and great grandparents and family members. It was so exciting. A Civil War veteran. It was so exciting. I think graves sort of became a part of me, and I've always been interested in graves. And I've got so many slides that I've taken from graveyards. So what I did about 12 or 13 years ago, I decided I had all these slides. I should probably do a public presentation. What am I doing with these slides if I'm not using them? And so I decided to organize a public lecture. And then I went to one of my friends and Professor Elaine Clark, a legendary professor, and I said, "You do graves? Let's do a two-part lecture series." And she said, "Oh yes, but there are other people also." So in the end, we came up with five names, and we organized a lecture series, and it was available to the public, and it was available for students. They could get 1 hour of credit if they would do everything that was required of them, and write a paper on a graveyard. So that turned out really well. At the end of the time, I taught. There were five Muslim students in there, and I said to them, um, "Why don't we try to find all the places where Muslims are buried and make a list of those places?" So that's what we did. And Shahada Tia, you see her name there. An attorney now, and um, we uh, they set off to find all the places where Muslims are buried in southeast Michigan, and and in the end, I started visiting all those places. I would say it says 1,000. I probably got 1,500 photographs of gravestones now. We found 32 different cemeteries or cemetery subsections. So if you've got a big place like Woodmere Cemetery that has 200,000 people buried in it, there are multiple sections in there that have Muslims in them. And then we found 25 different countries. This was quite astounding, and nine different religious or cultural subgroupings. I suddenly realized that that what this presentation is about. These are not Islamic graves, they're Muslim graves. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that Islam is a religion, and of course, these people are Muslims, Islamic, but what I realized was that they're also individuals, and each individual has his own culture, his own identity. And what I realized, there is an astonishing diversity within this community. From the outside, all Muslims are the same. But once you get into the community, you realize how many different groups there are. So that's what I want to do. I want to take you through these groups and show you all the diversity and the complexity. And I think you'll be quite fascinated by this. It's different from what people think. Now let's see if I can find, how do I advance this? Oh, there we go. Look at that. This is Imam Shiri. He's one of the most famous imams. For those of you who know the Islamic Center of America, that's that big mosque right across from our campus. And Imam Shiri was sort of the founder of that mosque. And he died maybe 20 some years ago. And this memorial was built to him in United Memorial Gardens. That's a place where large numbers of Muslims are buried, especially Shia. And this is the Quran that's open, and it's open to first first surah. Surah is a chapter, and the opening surah is called the Fatiha, which means the opening. And in the name of God, the merciful, the benevolent, creator of the universe. It's very nice, and so it's up there in Arabic and English. He was a very interesting person. I knew him, and a bit. We had some programs together. So that's Imam Shiri. Now here's another. This is probably the first Imam, and interestingly, Imam Karub, Lebanese, as Imam Shiri was Lebanese. Imam Shiri is of the Shia tradition, and Imam Karub was of the Sunni tradition. And look at this. He came in the 20s, I think. And at that time, he was really the only recognized imam. And and so he served the whole community. Everybody was a part of his congregation, so to speak. And and he believed that people had to sort of you're in America now, you need to become Americans. And so you see, he calls himself Reverend Imam. Imam means religious leader, but Reverend is the American term. So he called himself Reverend Imam Hussein. Look at that. His name is Hussein. That's a very common name. That's the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, a very legendary, famous person in Islamic history. But his name was spelled slightly differently. I thought maybe that was a mistake on the gravestone, but in fact, that's exactly what he uh, spelled it, as did his son. And it says he's the leader of Islam in North America. The early Muslims were from Turkey. Well, of course, it was the Ottoman Empire in those days. And in fact, all the Arab states, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, those were all a part of the Ottoman Empire. And if you have any friends who are Turkish today, they're probably well educated. They're probably from cities, Istanbul or Ankara, and they're probably married. But in those days, back in the 1920s, for example, most of the Muslims were single males. They were not educated, and they came here. They came here just to work in the factories or do whatever they could. So here is a person. He has died. Many of those people, by the way, married American wives. This person apparently didn't. He probably spent his life with a roommate. This is not homosexual, it's just that they were friends. Here he's buried, he's called Dear Friend, and born in Turkey. Very, very interesting. And roses, the Turks like roses. So look at this one. These are Albanians. Isn't this interesting? Now, the thing too, so let's look down there. Do you see down below? There's the mosque in Tirana. That's the big national mosque there. And Tirana is the capital of Albania. And, uh, and up at the top, you have that symbol. When, when the Turks took over the Byzantine Empire, defeated the emperor, and uh, the Sultan then became the head of that empire. You know what? He kept the Byzantine emperor had a symbol which was an eagle facing in two directions, east and west, because Christianity was east and west. Now suddenly you've got a Muslim ruler, and you know what? He kept the symbol, east and west. So this is, ironically, this is the old Byzantine symbol, slightly modified. The thing to remember about the Albanians is that they were Albanians before they were Muslims. So whenever you see a Muslim, an Albanian grave, you're very often is going to see a very prominent display of that symbol of the Albanian nation. This is their national flag. So there it is, and I think it's so beautiful. I think that's an amazing representation, isn't it? Um, you'll find this with several people that they were actually what they were before they were Muslims. They were something else, and so their identity persists. This is interesting. Uh, these are the people from Crimea, and I once met I had a friend, you know, and we were talking. She's a Turk, and she said, "Oh, I'm a Crimean." And I said, "You're a Crimean?" She says, "Yes, we have a graveyard. We have a grave section." And I said, "Okay, tell me where that is." So I went to this, and there's a whole section there for the Crimean Turks, and they're very different from anyone else. So look, you see there, it says, can I? It says Kirim. That's Crimea in their language, and so he was born in Crimea and died in Detroit. And there you see that strange little design. That's the symbol of Crimea. And over on the left, you see the star and crescent. You see that? That's not Islamic. People think it is, but it's pre-Islamic. The Seljuk Turks had that symbol before they converted to Islam. So that's really a Turkish symbol. And down at the bottom, you see the Bismillah. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's go back. Shoot. You see the Bismillah, it says, in the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent. I mentioned that earlier, that's the Islamic invocation. Very often that will be used at the beginning of a meeting, like a wedding or any public event. The people will say that. So, but you see, it's in Turkish alphabet rather than Arabic or Western alphabet. So, what an interesting that is, I think. Oh, now look at this. These are the Bosnians. The Bosnians are another group who were Bosnians well before they were Muslims. And so there's a lot of complex history there. Look at all of the Bosnian stones look the same, and they all have a common passage on them. You see down there at the bottom, it says, I can't read Serbo-Croatian, but down at the bottom it says, you will always be loved by those who remember you. And so that's very nice. And here you see the star and crescent, but you also see some of the stones are flat across the top. Those are the male stones. Some are curved across the top. Those are the female stones. So, and there's a big section of Bosnian stones in Woodmere Cemetery, which is in Detroit. I love that place. Afghans. I like this one, inventor of the swim float. People, what is a gravestone? It's your last opportunity to tell people who you were, what was important to you, and how you want to be remembered. That's what a gravestone is. So this man was a husband and father. He was from Afghanistan. He was very proud of that. We kind of think today of the Afghans, we think of the Taliban and the war and all sorts of things. But you go back to the 1920s or so, there was a large Afghan population here. They came, I suspect, to work in the factories. And then inventor of the swim float. Look at that. That I think that's what we call floaties. You hook them on your arm. And so think of the lives that have been saved by the swim float. And the flag. This man was very proud to be an American. Azerbaijan. Baku is the main city of Azerbaijan. This is a couple. They were from Monroe, but there's no Muslim grave section, I suspect, in Monroe. So they came up to be buried in the Detroit area in a Muslim cemetery, and they put their pictures on. That's very uncommon. Other Muslims don't do that. And you see Nina there at the bottom. She was born in Baku, Azerbaijan, and she died in Monroe, Michigan. And the same with Ibrahim. He was born in Baku, Azerbaijan. They got married, I suspect, and came here, making a new life. Now, this is the Islamic statement of faith. People ask me, is there such a thing as a typical Muslim gravestone? Well, not really, but this is about as close as you get. There is no God but God, Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. La ilaha illa Allah. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. So you'll very often see people having either it says Allah or it says Muhammad. These things are very common. Muslims don't believe in images, although you can't tell the people from Azerbaijan. But they traditionally they developed a very elegant calligraphy, and that calligraphy can be turned into a lovely a lovely design of some kind. So somebody has hired a calligrapher to make a very lovely image of famous statements of faith. There's Allah, A. You see that thing on it goes right to left. You see that's an A, Ah. This is a La, Lam, La, La, Ah, Ah, La. So this is very common to see this. And look at this. You've got an eight-sided star. If you take, this is very popular among the Turks, the Ottomans, eight-sided stars. If you take a square and you put a square on top of a square, you've got an eight-sided star. If you put a triangle on top of a triangle, you've got a six-sided star. These are just the six-sided stars, sort of associated with Judaism, but it's not really. It's just you'll see Muslim stones with a six-sided star, and that's not a religious thing. It's just to be pretty, to be nice, to be, I don't know, looks nice. Anyway, this is a very nice representation of Allah. Whoa! When I saw this, I was so happy. Look at this. I sent this around. I posted this on Facebook, and so many people loved this. Look at this. This is the Holy Family. So right up there, you've got Muhammad, and look at this. They've got halos. That's sort of you think, oh, halos. Wait, that's Christians, isn't it? Well, why not Muslims do that? So that represents that they're holy people. You notice that their face is not shown. You see Muhammad's beard, but you don't see any. You don't see his nose or eyes or anything like that. This is Ali, who was Muhammad's cousin, and also his son-in-law, because he married Fatima, Muhammad's daughter. And look at Fatima. You see, look, Ali has got, you can see the outline of his face, his beard. Same with Muhammad. Well, look, Fatima, you can't see anything of her face, nothing. She's completely covered. And then they had two little sons, Hassan and Hussein, and they both died as martyrs, as did Ali. All of them were killed uh, in various struggles. And Hussein is very, very significant. Oops, sorry. Hussein is very significant in the Shia community because he died in a famous battle at Karbala, and they commemorate. They have a 10-day commemoration every year of this. He died rather than yield and give up his faith. He faced a massive army, and he and all of his followers were killed. So that's Hussein. Now look at Ali's sword. It's got 2 points on it. You see there, one, two. It's got 2 points, and it says this sword is called Zulfikar, and it says there is no sword like Zulfikar, and there is no hero like Ali. And it implies hero of young people, inspiring the youth. So I think this is so unusual. People say, you're not supposed to have representation of people. Well, that's not true in the Shia tradition. Look at this. This is Ali. Look up there. There's Ali. And you see his full face. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. You see Ali's full face. And you see the sword Zulfikar. 2 points. And here's 2 points. And then you've got the evil eye, which has nothing to do with Islam. It's just a cultural thing. It like wards off anybody who might want to cause you harm. But I showed this. I posted this on Facebook once, and one of my Muslim Shia students said, "We have that exact same image on the wall in my home, in the living room. We've got this same image." So what the Shia leaders have said is that an image like this is not an image of. It's sort of like the same logic of Catholics who say that a statue, when you genuflect to a statue, it's not really a statue. You're genuflecting to the person and their life, and the statue is just to remind you of this person's life. And so That's what the Shia leaders have said, that that when you have a picture of Ali, it's not really Ali. It's just to remind you that Ali was a great leader, and he was killed for his faith. Oh, you know what? Look at these two. I've been searching for the oldest Muslim stone, and I think it may be one of these two. Um, we Americans are the world's greatest experts on immigration, aren't we? We've been studying it for 400 years, and since the first Englishman looked up and saw a German or a Dutchman and said, "Hey, where did those people come from?" And and what we know is that most people who come to this country are under 30. It's pretty hard to find someone who's 50 who comes here. And so look at this person. He was born in 1857. And here is down below is another person. Let me see if I can read that. He was born in 1865. So let's see, 65, if he came in 1890, if he was 25, he came in 1890. And then this one came in 1857. That's even earlier. So these two may be the earliest. Oh, sorry. I keep hitting this. Very sensitive. Um, the This may be the oldest stone of a person who came and did not return. A lot of people came, worked for 20 years, and then went back home and built a house in the village. But other people stayed, and these may be the very first people. And look up here, you see the sword and the moon and star. So kind of a Turkish sort of symbol. I like this. This is so pretty. This is so pretty. But the reason I have it is not that it's pretty, although that's a good reason. But look at this. There was a person's photo there, and someone came and smashed it. They thought that was sacrilegious. Today, there are photos all over Muslim gravestones, so people don't do that anymore. But there was a time when you had these really strict people. You'll see this in Jewish graveyards as well. Someone will have smashed a. There'll be a photo of someone, and it's just smashed like this one. So that's kind of an artifact from the past, I would say. Those of us who study gravestones are interested in the messages. So look at this person. You left us. This is called a "your death" statement. That is, this is written by someone who survived, like children or a wife or someone. Well, in this case, it's the daughter, isn't it? Or daughters. You left us with a pain so deep. You left us with a scar in our hearts. You left us with unforgettable memories. You left us, but you are still here. You left us, and we still can't let go. Daddy, it's not the end, but the beginning. Adored husband, cherished father, idealized leader. Okay, look at this. This is very un-Islamic. You go to the Middle East, you're not going to find this kind of thing. This is an American adaptation. These people, you know what happened? They said, our American friend, her mother died or her father died, and they put this very nice passage on why don't we do that? That's nice. So this is kind of an American adaptation, and this is what you find in Muslim graveyards. You'll find adaptations. People are saying, this is nice. Why don't we do that? And so this is called a "your death." A living person is sending a message and saying to the person who died, "We still love you." Now here's another kind of message. This is a message from the grave. Feel my faith in you when you can't find your own, and always remember you're never alone. So this is probably a mom, I would guess. And again, I would guess her daughters put this in, but I don't know. The other one it identifies, it says daddy, but I don't know who put this in. But look at this. This is a reassurance from beyond the grave. that everything is going to be okay. I'll sustain you. I'm gone now, but my spirit is always with you. That's kind of nice, I think. George Mansour. This is very interesting because George is a Jarius. That's a Christian saint. Saint George, yes. But this person is a Muslim, had a Christian name. That's okay. But look, this is an early, look at this, 1938. In those days, a lot of people didn't speak good English, and they they would just give the stone carver, they would write it out, and then the carver would do it, and the carver didn't necessarily know any Arabic or anything, and the people preparing what was to be on the stone may not have been fluent in English. So look at this, you've got the dates backwards. Instead of saying 1907 to 1938, that's how we would do it. It got it 1938 to 1907. So that's okay, but it's kind of different from what you might expect. And look up there also, you've got the star and crescent, that Ottoman symbol. Again, that's not Islamic, but people identify with it. It's an identity thing. So there's a place where babies are buried, and I was just there the other day, and Platz for Tots, and uh, Naja Bazi is a very prominent person in the community, very respected, and maybe 15 years ago she created this. She worked in a hospital, and she discovered that when people, when there was a miscarriage, for example, they didn't know what to do with the remains of the body of this miscarried child. And in Islamic teaching, you're supposed to be buried. Even if you cut off your, even if your finger gets cut off in an accident, you're supposed to bury the finger. So she created this place for kids, and it's very nice. Today it's sort of been bypassed. There are a lot of places where children can be buried, but the whole idea of having, if you're a Catholic, you know this. There's very often a Catholic baby plot, a place in a Catholic cemetery where babies can be buried, and Jews do that also, and Protestants less so. I've seen some, but less so. And now here we see a Muslim section for babies, and not everybody can afford a nice stone. Here's somebody who had made a wooden stone. They didn't have enough money for a wooden marker. They didn't have enough money for a stone, so this is what they put in. I think today I was just out there, as I said earlier last weekend, and I think this has now been replaced. There's probably a stone marker for this. This may have been temporary, but it shows you something, doesn't it? That not everybody is wealthy enough to afford a $800 or $900 stone, maybe more, a couple $1,000 in some cases. Look at this. Here's a baby who died, and uh, he was 7. You see that? Born in 1970, died in 1977. The 2 angels praying for him. That's very un-Islamic. Muslims don't have angels on gravestones. That's really very, very American. And then the Holy Quran. I really think this is kind of an American adaptation. In the 19th century, if you go to 19th century Protestant graveyards, you'll often see an open Bible, and it will say Holy Bible. And I've never seen this in the Middle East, Holy Quran. I think this is probably an American adaptation. An open book, that's not a strange thing for Muslims, but it's this little representation of the Holy Quran. I think it might be an American adaptation. And look at the 2 slogans there. Suffer the little children. Okay, where did that come from? That's something Jesus said, right? And now I lay me down to sleep. What is that? That's a children's prayer. That's a Protestant children's prayer. I said that when I was a little boy. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Well, look at this. This family has so adapted uh, American customs. Why not? Angels praying, that's very nice. Suffer the little children. What a wonderful statement. And Muslims, by the way, revere Jesus as a holy prophet. Now I lay me down to sleep. Come on, that's so sweet. Let that be the prayer of a little child, a little boy. Ah, look at this. I was so happy when I found this. Do you know what the fruit of Islam is? You know the so-called black Muslims, the Nation of Islam, started in Detroit. I don't know if you knew that, but Louis Farrakhan is the head of that now, and they had a paramilitary group called the Fruit of Islam. I think Malcolm X was the head of that at some point, and the person, a pioneer, is one of the original founders of that paramilitary group. So this man, Henry Shahid, whose birth name was Vaughn, when he obviously is a convert, and when he converted to Islam, he took the name Shahid, and um, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. That's the beginning, as I mentioned to you. And so this very respected person is there, and I found a little section of Nation of Islam graves. Not many. I can only call these heterodox. I had a I wrote an article on Muslim graves, and if anybody would like a copy of that article, just send me an email, rstock@umich.edu, and I will send it to you. But I discussed these two stones at some length. Okay, look at the one up above. Nuyoma. Okay, who's Nuyoma? Sam Nuyoma was the leader of the independence movement in Southwest Africa, which is now called Namibia. A very famous person. And Yale Guy Miller. What kind of a name is that? That's a strange name, I think. Look at the upper right there. There's a lion. This is probably a Rastafarian. The Rastafarians, are a group of people from a religious group from the Caribbean. And then look what that thing is in the middle. That's not a cross. That's called an ankh. It's basically goes back to the pharaohs, doesn't it? If you go to Egypt, you'll find an ankh, and that's a very common jewelry in Egypt. And so they have an ankh there, and then prophet of truth. What does that mean? I don't know. But anyway, this person probably would not fit within a conventional Islamic framework. Now look down below. Uh, Altheria Shakir. Altheria means, the Seven Sisters, the constellation called the Seven Sisters. And so Altheria is a name for that. And look, it says arrived and departed instead of born and died, arrived and departed. That's very common on black gravestones, although it's becoming more popular among Muslims as well. But a believing servant of God, all right? And wait, what does that say down at the lower right? Peace be upon you. Okay, that's nice. And Christians say that. I know people in my church sometimes say that. So that's not a distinctly Islamic thing, but Muslims would say that. So I call these people heterodox. And I asked some experts, and they said, these people are heterodox. They don't, this is not conventional. And a five-sided star, look at that. This is very interesting. This is a black an African American woman. It's in a black cemetery, and there's a bench. Benches in graveyards are often for sitting, but there are other benches that are there basically to keep people from walking on a grave. And so look up here. It says, "Dear Kathy, you are always in our hearts. Loving wife, mom, aunt, sister, and friend." So Catherine Morris was her name, and she's obviously a convert. She took a Muslim name, Khatun, and which I think means a righteous woman. And then, dear Auntie, I miss you every moment. Obviously, a single person. It's not we miss you. Obviously, an individual put that in. I miss you every moment. Miss your kind and and loving care but we know your home is in heaven, and someday we'll meet you there. Inshallah means God willing. I think this is very interesting. African Americans get overlooked that the largest number of Muslims in this country are African Americans. They're larger than Arabs, they're larger than Pakistanis. Look at this. Chinese Muslims. Now, there are, these people are not converts. And this is a big stone, really big. And there are two big stones, one for the mom and one for the dad, except they're great grandparents. And it's got a list. There's a passage there from the grandkids who actually put this in, and they said, "Our hearts are breaking in grief for your loss." Look at this, Hussein Chow Fong Pai. He's got a Muslim name, Hussein, and he's got a Chinese name, and so here we've got Islamic, right? And down here we've got English letters. This is interesting. It's also got Chinese letters, and in typical Confucian fashion, it's a Confucian style. It says, "From this village, from this district, from this province." You know what? Confucianism is has to do with respect for elders. That's not. It's not a religion. It's a cultural thing. So it's not in any way inconsistent uh, with Islamic religion. So you can be a Confucian and be um, a Muslim as well. And this person is not a convert. There's a group of people in China who are they're a small group, but they're the largest minority group other than ethnic minorities. And these people have been they're fully they're fully Han Chinese. That is, they're mainstream Chinese in their culture and everything. They just happen to have a religion that's Islamic. Dawoodi Bohra. This is a group of people from India and Pakistan, and they're a merchant class. Look at that, aren't those nice? And and those don't have bodies in them. Those are kind of they're covers of they're covers for the grave, but the body is buried in a normal way. Dawoodi Bohra. Here's someone from Guyana. Oh, what is he doing in Dearborn? I don't know. There's a migration of people here. You know, I read a study of early Lebanese. These happen to be Christians. Lebanese immigrants to Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester is right in the middle of the state, and these people formed a little bit of a community. And you know what? One of the first things they did, 1885, they had a church. This may well be the first Arab church in the country. I'm not sure. 1885, and then as soon as they had a church, they got a section of the graveyard for people of their culture, for Arab Christians. And at this point, something really interesting happened. Arab Christians, Lebanese, who would die in Detroit or somewhere else, would have their bodies shipped back home, except it wasn't back to Lebanon. That's pretty hard to do in those days, especially. Uh, but they would be shipped back to Worcester. And you say, it became like a virtual homeland. It's like kind of nice to be buried among your own people. And so people from all over the country got shipped back to Worcester. And I don't know, maybe this is just someone from Guyana who thought, I want to be around Muslims, and there are some in Detroit, so I'll go there. Or maybe this person died, I don't know, and just wanted their body shipped to Detroit to be buried in a Muslim cemetery. These people are, this is very interesting, nice photos. These people are Yoruba from Western Nigeria, he and she. And look at those head covers. You can tell they're Yorubas. And born in Lagos. Lagos is the national capital, but they were obviously not originally from there. They're probably their families were from Western Nigeria, Southwest Nigeria. But anyway, here are Nigerians. When you think of Muslims, do you think of Nigerians? Well, you should. They're here. Oh, look at this. Um, Look at this. So how are we doing? Yeah, we're doing okay. Look at this. Look at this name. This person is a Crimean. Can you see this? You see that symbol? That's a Crimean symbol. Stephos. Well, that's Stephen, isn't it? Wait, Stephen, that was the first Christian martyr, wasn't it? That's a Christian saint. Ilias Savekius. Look at that ending. That's a Lithuanian. And that refers to Elias, I think. And over at the left, you've got the Star and Crescent. So here's an interesting story. During the long wars between the Ottoman Empire and Poland, which was then a big country, there was a point at which the Turks got kind of nasty towards their cavalry. And there's a group who basically were inside of Poland and they switched sides. And the Poles said, okay, you can be a part of our cavalry and we'll let you live in your own villages and you can have your own Islamic rules and policies. So this person, look at him, he's totally a Muslim, he's totally a Crimean, he's totally a Lithuanian. Lithuania was a part of Poland in those days. I think there's like 5 of those villages still left where there are Crimean Turks. But he's got the name of a Christian saint. How interesting. Bangladesh, you know, when Pakistan became independent, it had in 1949, I guess, 48, it had 2 parts to it. What is today Pakistan and Bangladesh. And I got to tell you, the Pakistanis kind of lorded it over the Bangladeshis, so there was an uprising. And this man was a part of that uprising. He was a freedom fighter for Bangladesh. He's the chairman of something, maybe the chairman of a committee, I don't know. But look up at the top, 786. What the heck is that? Well, some of you may know from the Jewish tradition that every Jewish letter has a numerical value. So you can a word has a numerical value, and a passage in the Bible has a numerical value. This is a common. I think the most famous is 666, which was the numerical value of the emperor who was oppressing Christians, and that's in the Book of Revelation. 786 is a 786 is the numerical value of the Fatiha. And so the reason if you're a Muslim, the reason you visit a grave is to say the Fatiha. You pray for the soul of the deceased. And so very often you'll see a passage, you'll see on the Bible, it will say pray or Fatiha or something like that. And what that means is, if you're here, please pray for my soul and let God know that I was a good person. Well, 786 is the equivalent of saying, pray for my soul. Interesting. You'll only see this on Pakistani and Bangladeshi graves. I've never seen this on an Arab or Turkish or other gravestone. Lots of mixed marriages. A lot of people married. Here's a person he's a Crimean Turk. Look at that. He's from the Crimea. His wife Anna is an American. These marriages, some of them worked really well. The Muslim and Christians, they respected each other, and so here you've got the Holy Quran and the cross, the symbols of their 2 religions, and they're okay with having both of those there. Look at this. If you've ever been to Istanbul, this I think is the Blue Mosque. Look at this. How many of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are there 8 minarets? This is the really big. Mosque in Istanbul, and look at the. You see there was a picture of a person there. Now, whether that fell off or got smashed, I don't know. You can't tell whether it was broken off or not. Okay, this is a really interesting stone. You know, we Americans have have like in our mind what immigrants do. So there are some immigrants, they come here, they become totally Americanized, they learn English, they develop American customs. Then there are some who stay aside, they don't get involved in American society, they don't learn English. Well, that this person absolutely just proves this distinction. Look at this man. Every single thing on that stone is in Arabic. There's nothing in English. But if you look up close, now wait a minute. I'm going to get close so I can see here. Do you see up at the top there? There. Do you see that? Can you see? Can you see up at the top? There's a chain with three links on it. That means he's a member of the Odd Fellows. That's a fraternal organization. And look at what he put on his gravestone, a picture of himself in his World War I uniform. This person is totally an Arab, totally a Muslim, and totally an American. Veterans, lots of veterans. People are proud to put down that they were veterans, and you know, they serve everywhere. They're cooks and they're captains. And here's someone who won a Bronze Star. Um, and Here's another person from World War II who was in the Air Force. Oh, the Army Air Force. Quite a few of those. I don't know why they were in the Army Air Corps. Remember, until the late 40s, the Air Force was a branch of the Army. Now, here's something that breaks up your stereotype, doesn't it? Miriam Simpner, she is that's a woman, a naval officer. My goodness, that's not what we think. Wait, Muslim women are supposed to like stay at home, aren't they? Get married, right? Well, not this one. She wanted to be a naval officer. She joined the Navy, became an officer, beloved wife, mother, and daughter. Uh, what a There's a wonderful story here, but I don't know it, so we just have to speculate. Here's a person in his Marine uniform. It says Semper Fi. You can't see that up at the top. I thought, okay, 1994. Why did this person must have died in combat? What was going on in 1994? I couldn't remember. And I had a photo exhibit, and this was one of the photos. And someone walked up to me and he said, "I knew him." I said, "Oh." He said, I was with his father when his father learned that he had been killed." And I said, "Why did he die?" And he said he died in an accident. He was on a motorcycle and had an accident and died. So he didn't die in combat, but he was so proud of being a Marine that they put that up for him. Um, a lot of people have, in my hometown, you go to the early 20th century or 19th century, you'll see wedding rings and people putting the dates of their wedding. I have that on my gravestone too. My wife wanted that, the date that we got married. So, and here's a couple, and they've got wedding rings intertwined. Very nice. Clubs, people join clubs, the Lions, the Shriners, the Masons. Final slide. Beloved sister, look at this, Victoria Fatima. I found this in I found this in a baby section, and but it was a mixed baby section. There were, look at the date, you know, she died in 1919. So there were Christians and Muslims all mixed together, babies. You couldn't tell. There's a little heart there. Victoria, that's kind of what is that? That's not a very Muslim name. Fatima, well, that is a Muslim name, except it's also a Catholic name because Fatima is a very famous saint. And Baiz, that's sort of Hispanic sounding. It's sometimes Jewish, sometimes Muslim. In fact, this girl is, all we know about her, apart from her dates and her name, is that she had probably an older brother and sister, beloved sister. The roses, she's probably of Ottoman origin. I wasn't even sure she was a Muslim. It took me a long time. And then after I visited this place 3 or 4 times, I would say, I realized that about 30 feet away, there was the uh, Baiz stone for her parents. So this is a little Muslim girl. She died. She was 1 year old. Look at that. Very sad. Must have been tragic. Okay, that's it. That's my presentation.